from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Agday, the White House preparing to host another renewable fuels meeting this week.
I'm Betsy Gibbon. One rural town supports the RFS so much as residents are taking matters into their own hands. We'll explain ahead in the show.
Plus, an update on planning progress in agribusiness, challenges for cotton farmers.
Export demand is fantastic. I mean, maybe the best market we've seen.
And could good bacteria help in the battle for clear skin?
Agday, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Trade negotiations, planning pace, a new farm bill, all topics making headlines in recent weeks. But a battle over the future of renewable fuels and ethanol continues to percolate through Washington. The president planning a 7th biofuels meeting scheduled for later today at the White House, expected to be on hand 4 senators, including Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Ted Cruz of Texas, both on opposite sides of the issue. They'll be there along with EPA and USDA officials and staffers. The hope from the administration is to hear the results of recent studies and make a decision about the future of the RFS.
I think the president is ready to make a decision about this. I think we are at a point where we have all of the information. I think both sides have made their interest in this clear, and I do think it's a healthy conversation to bring to an end.
Chuck Grassley telling AgriTalk's Chip Flory Monday recent action by EPA to waive blending requirements at some refineries must be addressed.
It looks to me like there's really a liberal use of the word hardship when we get rumors that subsidiaries of Exxon are asking for a waiver, or a company that made $1.5 billion profit last year. Doesn't sound to me like those are hardship cases.
As Washington officials meet to figure out the future of ethanol fuel, one Indiana town is banding together, showing their support for how much the RFS means to their rural community. Betsy Gibbon reports from Portland, Indiana.
It's hard to ignore the Poet biorefinery plant set in Portland, Indiana, a massive facility.
It's allowed for economic improvements in small rural communities like Portland, Indiana,
which has an even bigger impact on its town.
It supports the employees out here who work at the ethanol plant. It supports the farmers.
That sentiment is shared throughout the city, so much so its city council passed a resolution urging Indiana lawmakers to protect the renewable fuel standard.
I think our Senator Donnelly's tired of me writing. He writes back, "Dear Bob."
It's support some residents feel is needed as they believe renewable fuels are under attack in Washington.
Last year they paid $218 million.
Lawmakers from big oil states fighting for a cap on renewable identification numbers, also known as RINs, in hopes of driving down RIN prices. Other lawmakers are pushing to fight RIN prices by growing supply, opening the door to E15 pumps year-round nationwide. Poet General Manager Matt Tamano believes E15 needs to be blended year-round, giving consumers more options at the pump and farmers more demand for their product.
So if they can't sell all the crop that they can produce, that's going to continue to reduce prices and create challenges for them from an economic standpoint.
We have a positive basis most of the year. And it's primarily because of this ethanol plant.
On the discussion about capping RINs.
A RIN cap is going to cap our ability for market expansion of E15 and higher level blends of ethanol. We know that once it's out there, consumers want it. But if we can't get ourselves into the marketplace with that RIN cap, that really hurts the expansion of E15 in the future.
Then there's recent revelations about waivers and decisions by Administrator Pruitt to waive the renewable fuel blending requirements for multiple refineries.
But hardship ought to be hardship. And when one of the companies that got waivers made $1.5 billion of profit, I don't consider that a hardship case.
In December last year, EPA finalized the RFO, renewable volume obligations for 2018. The waivers came after that, so they no longer have to be reassigned. Now, I don't think that was by accident.
Back in Portland, locals stay supportive of the town staple and its impact on the region.
We have people with biology degrees, accounting degrees, agricultural economic degrees.
As the community hopes this business and their message won't be overlooked in Washington. Reporting for Agday, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Thanks, Betsy. The RFS is not the only topic of discussion at the White House. The president also reviewing last week's trade trip to China with his team. The two countries failing to come to a consensus, but have agreed to continue the conversation. U.S. negotiators took an 8-point plan that included asking China to pledge not to target U.S. farmers for retaliation and asking that it open its services in agricultural sectors to full American competition. The U.S. delegation stipulated that the two sides should meet every quarter to review progress. Chinese negotiators may visit the U.S. at the end of this month or next month for further talks. Meanwhile, new reports that China is offering its own farmers incentive to plant more soybeans this year. They're calling it an emergency declaration. NAFTA talks restarted Sunday. Negotiators from the U.S., Mexico, and Canada meeting in Washington to discuss several contentious issues, including automotive rules of origin, a sunset clause, dispute settlement, a seasonal produce proposal, and dairy. This week could see a final push to finalize that deal. U.S. negotiators say they need to reach an agreement before mid-May in order to get the deal completed this year. And House leaders are whipping votes on the Farm Bill. The House Ag Committee working to educate members ahead of a vote likely to be next week. Democrats seem unlikely to budge in their opposition to the bill, meaning the Farm Bill would need to pass with just Republican votes. The latest crop progress report showing farmers made big gains last week. 39% of corn is now planted, 5 points behind average, but a 22-point jump from the previous week. Illinois corn is now 3/4 planted. That's up more than 40 points. Iowa's at 40% planted, 8 points behind average, but a 23-point gain. While the crop is planted in those top 18 states, it's slow to emerge. 8% has broken through. 5 states have not recorded emergence, and all of the states are behind average. Soybean planting, it has pushed ahead of the average mark with 15% now on the ground. In Illinois, nearly a third of the soy crop is planted. The 5-year average is 12%. Farmers in eastern Iowa experiencing a nice window to plant like many other places around the Corn Belt. After what began as a slow start in 2018, some farmers have now wrapped up and are ready to put their planters back in their shops for the year.
This is probably the earliest that we've had both crops in.
We'll have more from eastern Iowa farmers tomorrow morning during our I-80 planting tour. On the wheat side of crop progress, spring wheat planting is still behind. A third of the crop is now planted. That's a 20-point jump in just a week, but still well back of the 5-year average. And 34% of winter wheat is now rated good to excellent. It's just 9% in Oklahoma, 14% in Kansas. Let's continue that planting progress update with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. He has today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Crop Comments begins in Dawson County, Texas today. A farmer posted on AgWeb last week that more than 200 days had passed and total rainfall was 1.2 inches. He says irrigated wheat was being baled as hay because it's worth more than the wheat seed. And from Hettinger County, North Dakota, farmers are just starting to put spring wheat in the ground. That's about 3 weeks later than normal. He says it's going to be a very busy month trying to get all the different crops in. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, the middle of the country is where it's going to be windy starting today, and that's pretty much going to be the case through the later afternoon hours as well. Heading toward tomorrow, that system does move a little bit farther east, so we're talking about the western lakes, central Mississippi Valley down into Texas in the morning, and that will expand a little bit farther eastward parts of the Ohio Valley by afternoon. We'll have more on your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
We'll continue to talk planting and cotton markets next at the Agribusiness Desk. And in Ag for Your Health, for many eczema patients, life is a never-ending merry-go-round of itching, scratching, and harsh medications. But a new study looks at bacteria as a way to battle back.
Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields.
In agribusiness, the merger between Monsanto and Bayer continues to move toward close, and leaders at Monsanto telling employees Monday that several of the top brass will not be joining the new team. That includes the father of Ag Biotechnology Rob Fraley and current Monsanto CEO Hugh Grant. Grant saying he's proud of the path Monsanto has paved, and he knows together with Bayer, the company will continue to move modern agriculture forward. Turning to Monday's markets, let's see how things finished from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Soybeans really were sharply lower. It seems that the U.S.-China trade talks are still unsettled, and it has everyone a little bit nervous. I think that the analysts also are saying that the world soybean supplies are actually increasing, and that makes it really difficult for us to kind of move any product. Also, there's one thing to consider, that with the exports or the lack of exports actually going to China, even though that the tariffs have not been imposed yet, the real concern is that they're going to go ahead and schedule exports, and then by the time shipping comes in, there's going to be, the tariffs are going to show up here. So that's why you have a lot of the export trade slowing down a lot. Also, the NAFTA talks have a lot of the traders a little bit nervous on what's exactly going to happen here. So U.S.-China trade talks and the NAFTA talks are still all in unsettled ground, and the U.S. dollar index is still creeping higher. So that could also be putting a lid on our outside sales or outside exports. So we're going to watch that closely. That's all from the floor at the CME Group here in Chicago. I'm Virginia McGathy.
John Payne, publisher of This Week in Grains and Oilseeds newsletter. John, let's talk about the cotton market, because we are behind in planting, but prices have been pretty solid.
Yeah, it's been a good 18, 24 months here in cotton. Right. Two big bullish stories that are dominating the trade right now. One in the front end of the curve, one in the back of the curve. So starting in the front, demand, export demand is fantastic. I mean, maybe the best market we've seen from an export side in a while. We're at about 113% of export pace, so we're going to see the USDA increase demand in the coming WASDE reports. And then on the back of the curve, it's planting, and pace isn't that big of a concern yet. It's the lack of rainfall in West Texas. Okay, and if you're a cotton trader, I think you just stick your eyes on the forecast for that panhandle of Texas. If it rains, I think we'll break, but at this point, they're so far behind in moisture that it's going to take a good storm to do it.
It's going to take quite a bit of rain. How much do you think we'll see planting shift or not shift, or acres come out? Have we got an idea about how big an area this may be? It's a pretty big area. I mean, if you take basically the panhandle of Oklahoma, panhandle of Texas, and now a lot of acres that have come online in southwest Kansas. I mean, a lot of those guys haven't had rain since Halloween. So talked to a guy today, said that if they wouldn't be shifting to anything, they would simply abandon, and any dry land that doesn't get rain in the next 2 weeks, they think they would abandon. So I think we're sitting right here 80 cents on that deferred contract. I really think you've got to avoid taking a too aggressive stance on the short side here, given the front end of the curve has such high demand. And in the past couple of years, as we go into demand or into delivery for July and May contracts, we've seen a squeeze. And I think that could happen again. So we're about 7 cents, 6 cents above May over the deferred contract. I think that could go to 10 cents, and that maybe pulls the December up to 80, 82. Wow. At that point, maybe you go in with some puts or do some hedging there. But I'm living through the past 16, 17 months of the trade. It's been a pretty good technical buy, and it doesn't appear to be breaking anytime soon. All right, John. Appreciate it. Thank you for your insights. We'll be back with more Agday in just a minute.
To find John's newsletter, This Week in Grain and Oilseeds, head over to www.thisweekingrain.com.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Welcome back to Agday. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, as we get into the heart of planting here in May, everyone's watching to see where these hit or miss showers are going to develop.
Most of them this week appear to be in the northern parts of the country. If you're looking for some rain, I don't see a lot in the southern sections, but you have some chances farther north. As you can see, high pressure dominating the area from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Great Lakes and most of the west as well. Putting the maps into motion, slow moving storm system moving through South Dakota. One off the northwest coast, one off the east coast that really isn't going to affect too many places, but the Outer Banks will probably see a little bit of activity late this afternoon. Heading through tonight then, you can see some showers and thunderstorms moving through the upper Mississippi Valley into the western Great Lakes by tomorrow morning. Showers throughout parts of Washington all the way into western Montana. Again, all of these are kind of scattered. None of these are widespread heavy amounts. You can see by tomorrow afternoon we get a few hit and miss into the southeast. Generally, though, it's closer to the area of low pressure, and the same thing out west. So checking out precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours, I mean, that's the lack of rainfall across the country. Adding in the next 36, we do add a little bit across the northern Mississippi Valley. Some pockets, if you get a heavier thunderstorm, you can end up with an inch or two, but for the most part, it's going to be a little bit hit and miss. That's the best chance, though, obviously, in that area. And also western Washington ends up with a pretty decent chance. Highs this afternoon, hot through the central and southern plains, 80s and even a few 90s, 60s and 70s into the northern plains. Lots of very comfortable temperatures in the eastern third of the country. Heading through tonight, then, it stays mild for a change. Look at that. The coolest readings are in the upper 40s. Haven't seen that, at least this season. High or low temperatures only in the 70s, kind of muggy through Oklahoma and some of the surrounding areas, and hot again, Oklahoma and Texas, but a little bit cooler, but still comfortable farther to the north. There's the jet stream as we head through time. You can see little pieces of energy kind of diving through the northern tier of states. Otherwise, it kind of stays dry in the south. That gives you at least a chance in those drought areas, though, next weekend or this coming weekend for a little bit of moisture. So we'll be watching that. Otherwise, it's mainly zonal by next week at this time. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, for Austin, Nevada, a good deal of sunshine and warm today, high temperature of 82 degrees. Spencer, Iowa, mild shower or thunderstorm likely, high 75. And Richmond, Virginia, a mix of sunshine and clouds, the high around 71. Still to come, the benefits of good bacteria when it comes to treating a painful rash, and what is the contentious dairy issue within NAFTA costing the U.S. dairy industry? That answer's next. In our dairy report, as NAFTA negotiations reconvene this week, the dairy industry is urging the administration to address the Class 7 issue with Canada before the deal is done. Dairy groups like the International Dairy Foods Association are still pushing for a dairy deal to be worked out. IDFA's Michael Dykes telling Agday that while the deal may come in the final hour of negotiations, he's hopeful several dairy provisions will be included. Dykes believes the administration understands the importance of getting Canada's Class 7 milk pricing structure fixed.
In the short run, we have the highest cost milk producer in the world undercutting us, dumping skim milk powders on the world market, and we're losing sales in third country markets. They are putting skim milk powder on the ground in Mexico at 3 cents a pound cheaper than we can from the U.S. That just tells you there's an issue there. There are European dairy participants are losing sales in North Africa. Same issue. They have gone from about 20,000 metric tons a year to last year they did over 70,000 metric tons of skim milk powder. So that's the short-term implication, the loss of markets.
Dykes says skim milk powder is a very thinly traded product. At a 1 cent per pound difference, it can cause sellers to lose a sale. He says the long-term impact of Class 7 is foreign investors are building infrastructure in Canada, including infant formula plants. Coming up in Ag for Your Health, a new clinical trial is testing bacteria to see if it can give eczema patients a little break from intense scratching and harsh medications.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Our bodies need bacteria for a healthy existence. Now researchers are trying to determine if good bacteria can give eczema patients relief from the constant scratching and painful medications currently on the market. Eczema is the most common skin disease worldwide. It causes ugly skin rashes and painful itching. Harsh treatments with steroids and antibiotics can help for a while, but the itching always returns. Your skin contains over 1,000 species of bacteria. Some damage the skin and make eczema worse. Others actually help skin. For the first time, a new clinical trial conducted by National Jewish Health is using bacteria to restore healthy skin.
When the body is no longer making its natural antibiotics, then there's absolutely no ability to fight the bacteria, and then the bacteria keep multiplying, and then they cause infection.
Researchers apply this good bacteria to a patient's skin in a lotion, then examine samples in the lab to see if it restores a healthy bacterial balance. Doctors hope to prevent harmful infections and reduce the need for harsh, short-term treatments. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spent part of your day with us. For Mike Hoffman and all of us here at Agday, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.